National Signing Day was last Wednesday. Now that the dust has settled a bit, good chance to catch up with Steve Wiltfong, the National Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Good enough to join us for a couple of minutes here. Steve, thanks for the time, man. How are you?
Gentlemen, doing well. Yourself?
Doing fantastic, man. We appreciate your time as always. Let's keep it local, and then we'll branch out a little bit as we move along. Your reaction to the class that Ed Ogeron and his staff signed here on the heels of winning the national title?
Well, it was a phenomenal class. You're talking about a class that checks in at number 4 nationally in the 24/7 Sports composite team rankings, and it's highlighted by maybe the best overall player in this 2020 class, and Arik Gilbert, the highest ranked tight end in 24/7 Sports history, over 2,000 yards receiving as a senior, the Gatorade National Player of the Year, a guy that should be able to step right in and be an impact player as a true freshman and replacing Thaddeus Moss. And if you'd combine him with Keishawn Butte, that's maybe the best receiver tight end combination that anyone signed in this 2020 cycle. But I think LSU landed some difference makers on the defensive line. And, I mean, again, when you're talking about the number 4 class in the country, I could probably point to every position room and say I like a couple guys.
Steve, could you elaborate a little more on Gilbert? Because people here are really not only excited about the potential of him in year one, but also, quite honestly, Steve, I think a little surprised that they were able to land him. I mean, could you speak to both that, how LSU got Gilbert, one, and two, what his immediate impact might be as a prospect?
Well, LSU brought him in on an official visit. It was one of the more exciting weekends to be at LSU. I believe he came in for the so he was there the weekend of the October 12th. So was that the win over Auburn or the win over?
That would have been Florida.
Florida. So
yeah.
The win over Florida. Yeah. So he was there on his official for that, and they beat the Gators. And I mean, I think he just saw a tremendous opportunity to make an impact at LSU, and saw the way Thaddeus Moss broke out, saw the offense and the potential. And LSU's coaching staff isn't going to be outworked by anybody on the trail from a relationship standpoint and an effort standpoint.
Steve Wiltfong's with us, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. I know sometimes the tendency, Steve, is to focus on who you didn't get instead of who you did, but the Jordan Burch situation was sort of odd, obviously, how that all played out. Now with time removed from it to reflect, what happened there?
Well, I think LSU made Jordan think a lot about his decision, but in the end, he opted to stay close to home and play for South Carolina, and a head coach in Will Muschamp, who he's got to know very well over the years, and play close to home with some guys that he knows very well. And you know, South Carolina, if you look at their Ring of Honor, a lot of their best players are from that state, and they've always had good success in their state of recruiting blue chippers. And LSU obviously gave Jordan a lot to think about. They were his runner-up in December. He returned to campus for like a 3-day visit after not signing during the early signing period. I think that there was reason to be optimistic in Baton Rouge, but in the end, he chose the Gamecocks, and you don't win them all.
Is that a more common thing, Steve, than maybe we see? And it was just meaning a prospect committing and then maybe waiting or having second thoughts, and maybe this one just got more attention because it was such a high-profile player?
Well, I think it got more attention because he committed in the early signing period and didn't sign his letter of intent. So that took everybody took a step back there. And then certainly he could have shut down the process regardless and not taken another visit, but then took another visit to LSU and spent a lot of time there. And I think that there was a lot of buzz that he was really high on LSU, or at least the people I talked to, and that LSU gave him plenty to think about, and at times was maybe even the one to beat. But again, South Carolina was always in that one too. They got him to campus a ton over the course of his entire recruitment. It's close to home, and it's an opportunity for him to go play for a defensive-minded coach there in a program where he's got a chance to certainly be instant impact. He's an instant impact caliber prospect anywhere he goes, but obviously at South Carolina, he's got a chance to be a great difference maker for them right away.
Steve Wiltfong's with us, National Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. I'm going to look ahead to 2021 in a second, but if we broaden the scope and sort of pull back and look at the entire SEC, of course, we see the usual suspects there with Alabama and Georgia and LSU. Any storyline in the SEC coming out of signing day maybe that surprised you, or was maybe a more notable storyline that we're not talking about?
Oh man, I think the Texas A&M, if you look at their class and what they did on defense, I think that the last two cycles, the way that they've recruited on that side, gives them an opportunity to be as talented on that side of the ball as anyone else in the league. And they landed a quarterback in Haynes King, who won a state championship as a junior. Had a tough start to his senior year, but kind of rebounded. But maybe he's the franchise guy for them under center. But they've recruited very well under Jimbo. They had the number 4 class 2 cycles ago and the number 6 class this cycle. But the number 6 class this cycle actually ranks as a higher score than the number 4 class. So there were a lot of the wealth was not spread as much this year. There were six programs that really recruited at a high level, and Texas A&M was one. And I have a feeling that this rivalry is going to be a good one between the Aggies and LSU. I know that LSU lost that tough 7 overtime game 2 years ago, and I talked to someone that said that this game against A&M meant more this year than the Alabama game, and it certainly showed when they took A&M to the woodshed. But I think that they're already counting that game down in College Station. I don't remember exactly what I read, but there's a daily reminder in that football facility right now at Texas A&M of the lashing that they took at LSU. This rivalry, with the way Coach Fisher's recruited the last 2 cycles, and then obviously the way LSU always recruits, it's got a chance to really become one of the fun ones nationally.
Steve, there is no doubt that the LSU coaches and players and staff had a gigantic circle and an asterisk around that game last year. Man, that was a no mercy kind of game at the end of November.
That's what makes it fun, right?
You're right.
Those rivalries, and now we'll see if A&M can respond at home next year.
Yeah.
And LSU will be up for it because it is the A&M game, and we'll see if LSU's also right there knocking on the door of another college football playoff at the same time.
It's the thing at A&M. I think they changed the code to get in their building to the final score of the game, 50-7. So I think that's what. Yeah, you're right. But
so we can all get in.
let's go. And so if there's any 247 graffiti, we know where it came from. It's Steve Wiltfong. All right, last thing. How much it's been a while since LSU won a national championship, 2007. How much does winning that championship provide a recruiting windfall for 2021?
Well, it's hard to say for a place like LSU that's always been in the top 10 historically for 24/7 Sports. 4 this year, 5 last year. I mean, I would imagine they're going to be right there in the conversation to potentially finish number 1 again this year. I think for LSU, when you win a national championship, where Alabama's done such a great job, Matt, is the line to get into the Alabama football facility is long, and it's full of good football players. And making sure that you're taking the right guys that maintain the standard, because if you're 5, 6, 7 bad evaluations away from not being a contender. And so for LSU, I mean, I don't necessarily know if this is a challenge or not. They've always recruited well, but for me, it's all right. You won the title. You were already attractive, but maybe you're a little more attractive. Making sure that the guys you want to come play for you are the absolute right guys to maintain the crystal ball culture and the crystal ball standard, and guys that are hungry to win another one. And so I think that it puts more scrutiny on their player evaluations and making sure that they're taking the right guys, because if they offer a kid a scholarship, they're going to have a chance to be in that top 2 or 3 for generally everybody they're really pushing for.
He's on Twitter at swiltfong247. He's Steve Wiltfong, the National Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports. Good enough to spend a couple of minutes with us here on this Monday. Steve, we appreciate you as always, man. Thanks so much for the time.
Gentlemen, thanks for thinking of 24/7 Sports. Keep up day to day with the fellas that go 247, Shay and Billy Embody and Sonny, and y'all take care. Have a good one.
Steve, you're the best, man. We appreciate it.